Well, this is Fresh Talks Global Vision. We're in a new space, and I actually get to be with somebody like right here in this space instead of just being virtual. And I love this feeling. So today I'm with Katie McGee. Thanks for coming. And well, I mean, I'm at her location. So I love this. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you so much and some of the conversations we've had. And so I'm looking forward to like what we like to do here is it's always talking about being empowered, understand that your voice means something. How can we open up the voice more? How the experts that we bring, we're talking about this of how you can learn more about yourself, what's really happening out there in the world. And I also want to partner with you. You probably have a vision of how, like, if this world in itself was this or that, which I say, let's stop the blaming and shaming. Let's open up the voices. That's what Fresh Talks Global Vision is about. But I bet you have your vision too of what you're looking for that you said, if my neighborhood was this or the world, interacted this way, life would be so much easier. I really believe that that can happen when you start bringing a collective together. You get educated, you're learning about stuff. So today with Katie McGee, we're over here and we're going to be talking about her being a financial service representative. She's been in finance for 20 plus years. So we're going to get, almost 20 years. She also does stuff which we're really going to talk about too. That's going to be partnering with the what I call hashtag speaker locking arms. How we're going to partner together is that she does nonprofit work, and one of them is her being on the board of Women's Empowerment, and the other one is National Black MBA Association. And so I'm just proud to be here with you and get to know you more.
Oh, awesome! I'm happy to be here.
Yay! Okay, so Katie, when we go into, like, let's connect this with if we were empowered, and she does a lot of women's work or also just people that are feeling underserved, which is a lot in the finance area for women. So think about you, even if you are thinking, well, I'm not a woman, but we're going to be talking about just the empowerment around wealth building, money, connection. We'll get into that with Katie. But also, if you feel comfortable with that, start getting more educated that way, how will it change your world? What would be different in your life if you weren't afraid of, like, maybe a bill coming? You're like, oh my gosh, we're going to talk around mindset around that. Katie may not, because Katie is very structured when it comes to finance services and also being in the industry. So she's going to have a lot of really good structure around this, but I may throw a couple things in there. So what I say may not be totally representative of what Katie says, but I'll stay in alignment because we really want to feel motivated and in love with the possibility of what can happen when it comes to finances. So let's start talking about the first thing we were discussing here. What do you want to share about you being a financial service representative and also almost 20 years being in the industry, and you were on your own for quite a long time? And we were talking about that, even how she got here, which is a really fun thing to talk about too, because you're always thinking about networking, how you know people, and there may be some people that you can partner with to level up in the next thing you're going to be doing too. So what should we talk about in this finance service representative area?
Oh, all right. Well, thank you, Rhonda, for that warm intro. So as Rhonda mentioned, I have been in the financial industry for almost 20 some odd years.
She's big and bold. She's trying to figure out how loud can I talk.
Yeah, I know the mic is here. Yeah. Okay. So I've been in the industry for almost 20 years, as Rhonda mentioned. I started out as a mortgage loan officer. I was a loan officer during that time when the market crashed, 2007, 2008.
Wow.
Yeah, so crazy times.
Oh, I learned a lot.
I learned a whole lot. Yes. And the company that I worked for at the time, again, because everything was going haywire, they literally picked up on a Friday, where I went to work on Friday, should I say, and then returned on Monday, and they were gone. And supposedly that was a thing during those times.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so literally cleared out the entire office, right?
Well, how do you work through something like that? Because
Um,
that's like a whole, like you have money coming through,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, bam, it's just like gone. Like,
It's
what did you
gone.
learn in that space, just in that pivot time?
What I learned, wow, I learned a whole lot. I mean, there was that little me moment, but then you think about the bigger picture, right? Of those who lost their homes, their retirement, those who are much older than me, and literally everything that they had saved is gone, right? So there was dealing with that aspect of it because I still had clients who had my personal cell phone number and were calling me with, their concerns. And
Yeah.
then there's me, right, trying to pick up these pieces of like, you're right, what's next?
Well,
Where I go
I
next?
want to hold that too, because what I like about this is that Katie is definitely talking about herself, like this happened and this affected me. But I love hearing the heart about when you start growing your heart more and you're like, why my bigger why? It was here, wait, but the gratitude of these people have been around, and
Mhm.
part of your journey is that they need help too, and getting into action and helping others must be a way to kind of actually help you move forward too, and what your next steps are, right? Just serving.
Yeah, serving is a big part of my why,
Yeah.
which we'll touch on too.
Yeah.
But I went. It took I would say a month or so. Wells Fargo was hiring, so I did take a position there, and a little different than what I was doing in the mortgage industry. I went into retirement planning, so I was working with their high value customers over at Wells Fargo,
That's good.
Premier.
Great experience.
Great experience,
Yeah.
yes. And so there we set up IRA accounts, maintained existing ones, kind of thing, and almost found myself maybe 2 years later in almost the same predicament because my entire department was displaced.
Oh my
Wells Fargo
gosh, what a
It
journey.
is. They were merged with Wachovia at the time, and so that happened. And
Can I hold that space for you? Please, like I always think about this because you're sharing so much
Yeah.
about what happens in regular life. Like we think we're moving forward, and
Mhm.
then there's that spot where like,
you have to
wait,
pivot,
yeah,
life happens. Yeah.
and life happens. So, what was your growth now? Because you're here now, but when we look back, there's
Mhm.
some things that you were learning along the way that actually brought you here as being able to open yourself up and be
Exactly.
bigger and bolder and build it. This building that we're in is a beautiful building, and I
Mhm.
bet a lot of people actually want an office in here. It's that beautiful, right? Downtown Sacramento. So you actually, with all those things you had to deal with,
Mhm.
it helped in some way probably help you learn about how to pivot, how to navigate things, and because we're talking about life
Yeah.
stuff happening.
Events. Yeah, and that I was going to get to that. That I'm a strong believer that everything that is happening in your now is a bigger part of your future. So you have to go through it to go through it, kind of thing, right? And so, full circle moment. Like I said, Wells Fargo, and you mentioned the building that I'm in. The guy that head of agency here. I knew him back in my Wells Fargo days too. So this is
Wow.
like I said, full circle moment, and I consider myself right now to be well-rounded when it comes to finances, right? I understand what it's like to have to literally start from the ground up and rebuild, whether it was in my own personal finances or my clients that I had to deal with back then who lost again their retirement and their homes. Right, and just with that rebuilding.
I feel
It's
the
like one of my
empathy
details.
too, because you've seen from their eyes what they were dealing with, but also what you had to deal with,
Mhm.
feeling the pain,
Yeah.
but also it'll open you up for having more empathy for
Yeah,
others.
absolutely.
Because sometimes people think finance and insurance is just about cold, and it's a club. You're like, you just follow the rules, or
Yeah.
you're just not part of it, but you're actually talking as a human,
Mhm.
more, instead of just trying to bulldoze somebody and say, no, this is the way it is, these are the rules, because we do know it's pretty strict when it comes to what you can say in an interview or what you can do.
Mhm.
So I love that, because this goes back to what we're talking about is when you're trying to pivot, it can get scary, leaning in and having people, being able to receive people that may be trying to help you instead of getting lost and bound in your own fear, that stepping out and opening up really does help.
Yeah.
Okay, so then from Wells Fargo, then I think we're learning a lot about life with all this stuff. Okay, and what happened after that with Wells Fargo?
After Wells Fargo, I went to work for Golden One. again, sticking with finance, go to one. I was in the mechanical breakdown department. I was a one-woman army there. They actually created the position at the time.
Because they saw it and knew that they could, when
Yeah.
they saw you, they knew that you could hold that
Well,
space.
that, and
with your
then I
experience.
actually, so I started out with that, what was called a member service representative, I think. And I had literally won every award that they were giving. And so there's this thing.
I'm so happy that we're here with Katie because we're learning about up-leveling and being able to serve at a higher level. I love
Yeah,
this.
so I won their Gold Star President's Club Awards, and you know, I started to, I don't want to say mentally check out, but I think that happens in careers, right?
Yeah.
When you feel like there's a cap or there's no room for growth,
Yeah.
even,
So
right?
at that point, you're feeling okay.
Yeah, like, okay,
I've
what's
gone.
next kind of thing. Yeah, and my manager at the time came to me with that position that they were opening. It's like, well, there's
Wow.
going to be this department, and you know, it's going to require some licensing, and I think that you'll be good for it. And so,
Wow.
yeah, I had to go get my property and casualty license.
Yeah.
So it's my first introduction to licensing.
Wow.
And then while in there, funny story, the guy who ran the training school, he convinced me to keep going. He was like, hey, while you're here, just go ahead and get your life and health license. And while in it, you know, being as though I experienced loss in my family, sure, like a lot of other people have, and understanding or knowing that there were times when we didn't have life insurance, right?
Yeah.
And
not even knowing why that's so important.
Why it's so important,
Yeah.
right? And so then it was like, okay, I want to do this for bigger reasons than just to have this license under my belt.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, how can I help families
Wow.
to make sure that in the event that the unforeseen happens, that they can continue their lifestyles.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I just kind of grew from there, you know, stayed with Golden One for a while, but again, I wanted to venture out into that life and health side of things, and they didn't offer it there.
Well, I love this conversation about growth, and then sometimes that's where you're pivoting. It doesn't have to take like we were talking about the beginning of your career, Key, is that you start going through it. But I've grown enough in this area, and I think sometimes we get stuck in that, and we are so afraid when it comes to. I think it's always about money too, or what people will think if I do this or that. So you're saying I'm in this growth experience. I'm understanding that I can support people, and I've learned a lot of things. So I want to pivot and then go into this next space. So then
do more and help people in a different, no, I don't want to say more meaningful way, but definitely more impactful.
Yeah, and use
right,
the layers that you've been learning.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so that's how that became my licensing for life and health became a thing, which kind of, you know, where we are today. I mean, I've gotten other licensing since then, but
Wow.
Yeah, that's how I got into this. And like I said, it was more so to make sure that I was having conversations with just about everyone that I knew about what could be the ramifications if you don't have something like this in place. If you were too sick or hurt and couldn't work, where does your income come from? You know, if you have someone that loves you and you support financially, what's going to happen to your home, kind of thing, right? And so
these are all important. And I didn't think about this stuff until my husband started talking about this stuff, because he started talking about these things. I was like, yeah, whatever. And this was, you know, so many years ago, but this is where, okay, so why do you think people stop themselves from going into those steps that, you know, it's a safeguard? It's like, you know, it'll make you feel better. It'll help you even expand what you're doing because you feel more comfortable in life. You're not going to be as much in fear because something can happen. And I think we get in fear if we don't have those safeguards around us.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest thing that you think why somebody that you've been hearing that why they wouldn't step into this? What do you hear?
I think it's just maybe the insecurity of the conversation around money, right? Many people feel unprepared and uncertain about their financial future, right? And I told you, I mentioned some statistics. One of them is 73% of people say that finances are the number one stresses in their life. So just the thought about it, right? The median household credit card debt is $7,000, right? The average cost of college after graduation or at graduation is $35,000. Then there's the 7 in 10 parents that say that they're going to deplete their retirement or investment accounts to pay for those kids' college, right? Which leaves them at risk.
Zero.
Retirement.
Even though they've been saving on this is going to be great. And then that comes up, yeah.
Then that comes up, right? And it's almost like a constant. So when you ask, like, why aren't people having these conversations? It's like they don't know where to start or what to do.
And don't you think it has a lot to do with nervous system too? Like to have a guide like you that's going to help them make better decisions. There's so many ways you can protect what's going on, but if we're afraid to talk about something, our nervous system will just have us bounce out of the conversation, or somebody can say something to you and you won't be able to disseminate it. But what I'm finding, of why I feel so comfortable with you, is because the things that happen to you along the way just educated you in the human condition, and that you keep growing more and more. And so to have these conversations, you're here saying, okay, let's take a breath.
Yeah.
And whatever questions you have, let's hash it out.
Exactly.
And you just are very calm, which if somebody's in a sales mode where they're not thinking about the person in front of them and the empathy, all the stuff that you've seen where people are just like, here, wait, the company just went down, that's all my savings. And then you got to experience how to hold that space for somebody. And the reason why I'm saying this is because you think about it in finance, and we're talking 7,000 on a medium in debt, and then also a high percentage of people that really are not really set to move forward and actually feel safe in their life. So what is it now with all those experiences that you find you're really good at, that's to help people move forward, to help people really say yes to some of these things that they never would? Like, what are the things that you're pulling from your past that you go, I can hear the yes and no's and I can hear where I need to go, but what are some of the conversations that you have? Maybe they'll be able to feel those experiences of like they're stuck in that story.
Right. So, one of the things I always tell people is just to take financial responsibility, right? Once you do that and you understand, like, what you own versus or what you owe kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
If you actually sit down and create a real personal budget for yourself, also, maybe getting in alignment with the credit card debt, paying some of that stuff off monthly.
Yeah.
I think when people have maybe a little bit more freedom and flexibility around disposable income, they're more comfortable putting things aside. And then it's an easier conversation because it seems doable, right? It's like, okay, yeah, this is something I can do. This is attainable. And these goals, right? We don't want to make them so long-term to where it's like, it's out of reach, not tangible kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see big projects being overwhelming unless you bite-size it.
Yeah, you gotta, start where you are.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I do, right? I have conversations with people where they are. We put together game plans to help them obviously think about what their future goals are, but numbers don't equal goals and goals don't equal numbers, right?
Yeah.
This could be like, oh, I want to travel with my kids. These
Yeah.
things are important, right? Like creating memories along the way.
Really.
And so having these real conversations and also explaining to people that this is still something that's doable. But you have to have the real conversation with yourself and take financial responsibility for where this income is going, right? In a banking world, we would call it a financial roller coaster because we would see deposits come in, and by the end of the month, they're gone. Right?
Yeah,
it's just
they're gone.
just in and out.
Oh, so okay, the other area when I was introducing Keedy, what I think would be really serving, and also because of all the things and the ebbs and flows that she's gone through, is I think a lot of people out there in business deal with a lot of what Keedy is saying. She's talking about finances. And so you are working with people that are struggling, besides people that are out there just nailing it, and they're great clients. But then you have these areas where you're doing some nonprofit work. Women's Empowerment is a board that you're on, and also National Black MBA Association. And you're looking at the overall, like, how can I serve? I want to be on these boards because they're helping in areas of the underserved population. You're talking about women and like feeling the strength and the power of what they do, but getting connected, how that can connect with more income and flow and get in reality with that.
Yeah.
So how does this tie with all your experience? That's why I wanted to kind of do a little personal with her professional space. You can hear the growth that you've been doing. So how does this help you when it comes to real life? Just out there on a board helping, and like, what are you doing? What are you doing with these nonprofits?
So
as part of being part of the group.
Right. So women's empowerment, it's a nonprofit that helps women who are facing housing insecurity, right? They may be escaping domestic violence or some sort of trauma, right? And so what we do there is we have a 9-week job readiness course that we put them through. We just finished class 100, so it's been around. Lisa Cope is the founder. It's been around for over 24 years. And so I would invite you to come to one of the graduations. So if you hear these women's stories from the first day that they walk in, women's empowerment, to the day of completion, it's amazing. Their journeys are amazing, right? And so we have on-site childcare. We offer computer literacy, financial literacy. We do job resume. We do interview mocking. We have an on-site store, if you will, or closet that women donate clothes to, and they can just go in and get.
Oh, I need to do that. I have some great clothes that I need to donate.
Yes. Thank you. And so they just go in and they shop and they, get themselves ready for their interviews, and we have someone, I guess, similar to a stylist to help them put their clothes together. Yeah.
Wow, I love this.
Yeah, we have a lot of volunteers on site. And the reason that's so near and dear to my heart is because in the financial industry, I feel like the women's market just became a niche of mine, unintentionally. But one of the things that I've learned is that in a few years, or it'll be more than a few, but in the next 30 some odd years, women are going to be number one in poverty, kind of already at that poverty line. And it's going to be due to death, divorce, and disability. And what I mean by that is, right?
You're going.
Yeah. So most women, and I think I mentioned this to you, and it's how this all came about. I was saying that during these kitchen table conversations that I have with families, and I go into the home, and then there's the husband, the wife, and the kids are all playing, wife's cooking dinner.
Yes.
Typically, I'm having a conversation with just the husband, right? And so that financial piece, which is very important and imperative to a woman's future, she's not a part of. She's not a part of that
Not
conversation.
understanding, bouncing off because it's just
just
something she's supposed to be there.
Yeah. Right. And so, learning that, or experiencing that, should I say, I became intentional about wanting to share just financial literacy to women and explain to them, there's opportunity to retire comfortably, whatever that means to you, right? Or in the event that, there is a loss of a job, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, your income will be okay. You'll be, you don't have to experience this homelessness. You know what I mean? You and your kids can be okay. So that's how those conversations.
And Katie, I think of homelessness because there's a big layer, but a lot of it is that we don't have a lot of funds that are going for mental health. And when you think about finance, if your world goes down, there's going to be a lot of issues of your mental stability. And so there aren't the funds there, but if there are some, by the way. But when I was doing accounting CPA stuff, there's a lot that's been cut. That was one of the things that I really watched over when I was in accounting. And so to have somebody like you work on these boards that are nonprofit, with that education, you're actually right there with people that are having these emotional issues because they've fallen flat. And so you're able to really be there because we need people like you that are doing things like this, because there's not a lot of federal state funding that used to happen. My dad flatlined and he heard voices, and there's just so many things that he dealt with. He was lucky to have me, and I was lucky to have him, because I've learned so much. And but to watch somebody that if he didn't have me, he would have been out on the streets. And I got to be there for him. And this is what you get to do with your stuff. So we're kind of the tail end here, but can you tell me about the National Black MBA Association? What's going on there? And then we'll conclude that. What is...
Sure. So this organization, we actually, it fosters economic equity for basically unrepresented professionals, right? So we orchestrate networking events. We have educational seminars for them. And then we talk about wealth and inclusion and what that could look like for you, right? Because I'm also a believer that wealth is knowledge. Or knowledge is wealth, excuse me, both. I guess we can do the reverse, but knowledge is wealth. And a lot of people just don't know what their options are out there. So having those conversations and letting people know what this could potentially look like if we start here, which would be like at zero. You're just coming out of grad school, because that's what it is. It's a Master of Business Association program. You're coming out of grad school, and then it's like, well, what are you going to do with this? And then, the profession that you thought you were going to go into, maybe for some odd reason, you weren't a good fit for that, right? And
you got there, you go, that doesn't fit me.
Yeah. And so how do you pivot from there? So we just have those conversations around that, and it's a support system for graduates in the program.
Oh, you are so inspiring me.
Yeah.
Because we don't get to meet a lot of people of the depth of what Katie McGee has done, which is like we talk about this overall bigger picture. Why I really appreciate you is because when we consistently are trying to challenge ourselves, and when there's tragedy that's right in front of you, saying, okay, all my financial stuff is like, like I don't have a job today, and last Friday I thought I did, is that whatever you learned in those moments, you just knew there was a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And you might not have known it at the time, but then all the stuff, all the work that you've done, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, what's an inspiration that you want to share with somebody about wealth and their journey or finance, but what's something you'd like to share with Fresh Talks Global Vision?
Yeah, sure story. So I actually met with this young lady. She's in her 20s, and she just finished nursing school. And I was more so meeting with her to set up a college plan for her 2-year-old son at the time. And then I took her through my process, and she realized there was obviously more that she needed. So we were, going deep, getting really in depth with her finances. I didn't know that there was someone else in the house. Her grandmother came around the corner, and she's an older Black lady, and she says to me, "Are you part of a secret society?" And she was like, I've never heard any of this stuff.
I just feel like I want to cry.
She was like, it would have been nothing for me during my working years to set something aside for myself. But now I'm living with my granddaughter.
Yeah.
So she had nothing about any type of savings. I mean, obviously you're handed a 401k package when you start with your employer, but most people don't know what they're signing off on.
Oh no, I didn't know the importance of that. I had to have my husband talk to me about it, because my mind was always like, I'm putting money aside. No, it was like a whole different.
And some people don't even sign up for it at all, right? They're just like, oh no, I don't need that, because they don't know what the need is and why it's needed. And so it was in that moment that I just made a decision or a promise to not just myself, but to her. And then her meaning the people out there like her, that I would be intentional about just having the conversation and letting people make the decision or have the choice, right? As to whether or not this is something that I want to do. But, so yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
All this inspiration, literally, there's a point where I wanted to cry. And if you are watching this, I'm going to make sure we have some links for you to be able to connect with Katie, and maybe some strategies, but we're going to do some links so that you can have a conversation. Who knows, but there's going to be some good information for you so that you can get yourself moving. I hope this conversation really helped you. And even if it's not about this specific conversation, but the motivation and somewhere in your life, add a comment, share, because maybe you're one that has your finances together, but somehow watching somebody to keep pivot. There's so many layers of what we got in this conversation. And that's what I think we're here for, is stop blaming and shaming ourselves. Like, let's learn, like what you're talking about, education. Like, I think that there's people out there where you just thought you weren't very smart because maybe in school there was a lot of chaos going on in your mind, or you were feeling that you weren't book smart, but you knew if you applied something, you just moved really fast. So there's different ways of learning. And so if we get more education on this, and I hope this started at the beginning or got even more layers of what you needed. So go out there and adventure, look at your finances, and look at any other layers you got, because I really appreciate you. And I believe that we are in here as a collective, learning from each other and discovering how can we make life easier with all the chaos. We may be in the middle of the storm, but when we start saying, I love you, you're smart, and you learn how to not tear yourself down, because the first thing is, here, wait, I love myself. I'm going to speak to my nervous system. I'm overly stressed. I want to take care of myself so I can look at that storm that's going on And this is where you can start reaching out, building finance and building everything that you want. Anything that you want in life, you just got to visualize it and then find those steps, or invite the right people in to help you make those decisions, because you will always find the money to get to where you need to get to if you keep moving forward. As Katie displayed in so many ways, she was in places, especially in finance, there were so many times, and 2000, like mid, like 2007, so, I mean, everything felt like it was going down. And to be in the industry at that time was very, very scary, because you didn't know what was going to happen. There were businesses that were going, and you may have been part of that. You may be part of, being let go because of how companies were really struggling. So think about where you are and just keep striving forward. When you feel like you're stuck and frozen, remember, hashtag speaker locking arms. Let's keep opening the voice. Let's be a collective and making sure that we're learning to love on ourselves more. And then outwardly, we're looking and saying hello to people, making sure that we share good eye contact of support, because we're here to stop the blaming and shaming. And I'm partnering with you and what you feel that you're here for too. I love you so much. Appreciate you. And we'll catch up again in our next conversation. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.